Well, good morning. How is everyone? It's Monday. Is that a good thing? No. Yes. I'm glad you said that. It sets up a discussion. Anything. That's perfect. Yes. Perfect. I'm sorry. Because Monday starts another whole week in your life. And it's that far until you can not have to be doing the stuff that compresses your life. That's not a happy that way. Let's pray, and we'll get to something. Come on in. Wait, please. Okay. It's all right. People are more important than clocks. Indeed. No worries. Let's pray. Father, in each person's mind and heart, I pray that there will be peace and hope and joy right now. In Jesus' name. Amen. Rewinding only a little, on Friday, I was talking about what occurred in my eager search for some food, maybe, or how there could be more in my interactions with people that were hurting so much that they couldn't see straight. And it was so much hurt that risking any compassion at all, which means the root of compassion. You could also state it as suffering with. When you have compassion for somebody, etymologically, the word really derives from suffering and with suffering. It's different than sympathy. When you sympathize with someone, you can look and you can feel bad that they're suffering. When there's compassion, you suffer with the person. Empathy is simply experiencing some similar emotions as somebody else. That's empathy. But empathy and compassion don't mean exactly the same thing. Because when you empathize with someone, you can empathize with their joys also, not just their suffering. You can empathize with their boredom. You can empathize with their anger. If you have trouble in the function of your mirror neurons, the brain circuits that are dedicated to helping you to sort of run a model of what it looks to you like another person is experiencing so that you can try to put yourself in their shoes. That's a real challenge for some people. For instance, on the autism spectrum, that's very difficult. Mirror neurons function differently in people depending on where they are and how they manifest certain autism spectrum conditions. But you can empathize with somebody to hurt them, to manipulate them, to take advantage of them. Con men and con women, people who are manipulators, shady salespeople that get you to do things that aren't in your best interest, but they're in their best interest. They will use their capacity to be able to understand how you're feeling so they can exploit you. That is definitely not compassionate. It's not altruistic either. Altruism is another word that's in that same discussion. Altruism is a matter of being willing to act, and in fact, inclined to and typically acting in a way that benefits somebody else when that costs you something. And to be an altruist would be somebody such that characterizes your character. That is how to characterize you. You tend to behave in ways that will benefit other people without regard to what it costs you, and especially when it's expensive for you. When you come up on an opportunity where there's a finite resource or opportunity, you're rooting for the other person to have it instead of you. That's truly altruistic. Okay? I was at a loss, having spent my more mature life since I was 10. I had been trying to help people all of the time, more or less by preaching. And it did help some people to preach and teach and counsel and to go and say, hey, I know some things, let me share them with you. But that was against the law, as the sheriff said. It was not okay. And there's a lot of situations where it's perfectly legal, but it's ridiculous. It's obnoxious, and it isn't helpful at all to preach to some people in some circumstances. Probably most people in most circumstances trying to go and give them some sort of knowledge that is unsolicited is obnoxious, and it doesn't end up helping their situation. It just annoys and prejudices them, or even some of the good information you might have been able to provide, but they might be able to have received at an appropriate time in an appropriate way, like when they're asking. So I was entering a new phase of ministry. It was the ministry of shut up, which was real new for me and required much new territory to be covered. So after this particularly heart-rending experience that sort of epitomized the kind of suffering that I was witnessing, I went to the Gospels, convinced that somehow there must be something that, no matter how many times I'd read before, no matter what I studied in my theology major, and when I went through the seminary, and when I preached for a decade and a half in churches, I thought there must be more, because if there wasn't, I would be very discouraged with what was lacking in terms of something useful. The temptation for me was to think, is the only stuff in here just stuff that's useful if you're a preacher? Or could this actually work for real people? Working with real people. Not just exceptionally when they respond to some sort of an advertisement in their mailbox or spam email something so that they'll come to your evangelistic crusade. It's always great when you have 100 or 200 people that come when you're having meetings and you go through the indoctrinate, but he said that was completely useless and irrelevant where I was fortunate enough to be suffering with people. So I found this thing in Mark 10. And 17 through 22 is where it really focuses. This young rich guy, which maybe on the surface seems to have nothing in common with the young man that they found laying halfway under a bush in the park of Martinez that they brought in, who I couldn't even tell if his mind was so fried he couldn't even talk to me, or if he was stoned. It was beyond it. All I could see was just walking, suffering. And so I revisited this story after praying for some kind of insight and then looking through trying to find a hint. I have no memory of having any idea why that story stood out, and it wasn't the only one where I was looking either. I looked at others. It wasn't this thing where you throw the Bible up in the air, say a prayer for it to open exactly where God wants to talk to you, and check where it lands. It wasn't like that. I was looking actively and came across this and read it, and something clicked. We said on Friday that Jesus had this conversation with him. Number one, Jesus didn't seek the conversation. Jesus didn't go looking for this guy. He didn't run any ads. This man came to Jesus because of how Jesus was living in the community. That's a key. That's a key for us. This man was seeking. He was saying, "Oh, I can't reach it. It's just about 3 inches higher than I can reach when you scratch that spot." But if you go out to somebody, just some stranger at a bus stop, and you go, "Let me scratch your back." Get off. Don't handle me. Get away from me. Don't touch it. It doesn't itch. However, if you were doing everything you could, and somebody said, "I'm going to get it for you," even if it was a stranger, that's strange, but it's killing me. Yeah. You'd be grateful. There are bizarre circumstances where you'd be grateful. It would have to be just the right kind of person. It couldn't be somebody who had a t-shirt on that said pervert or anything like that. It would have to be the right person with the right attitude. You'd have to sense that they weren't in that job. But if somebody comes and just starts, "Hey, I have a ministry that's scratching back, so let me scratch it," it doesn't itch. Don't touch. Similar. And Jesus didn't go around trying to find people that he could assault with help when they weren't curious, when they weren't asking. In fact, he was very polite. Do you remember the story? Were any of you there to hear the assistant chaplain's sermon about 3 weeks ago? Chantel, what's her last name? Smith. She preached a sermon about suffering with people in the community, which is just perfect with this. And she spoke about Jesus going to the pool at Bethesda and finding a man that had been paralyzed for decades. And Jesus did not just walk over and heal this person. Obviously, the person would want to walk. No, that's not necessarily true. Maybe they wouldn't. Their whole identity for decades, whatever they've got set up so that they're not starving to death for decades, is premised on being paralyzed. So it's not a given that people want help when they're cracked up. They don't always want help. They have built their life sometimes around certain kinds of suffering, and you need to have it be their agenda before you go in relieving suffering that people are using. And Jesus went and did something that this person didn't come and ask Jesus like the rich young ruler did in Mark 10. But Jesus went and said, "Do you want to be healed?" He asked where the person was. ask for permission. That's important. That's a matter of respect. So Jesus didn't go and have a campaign to find this man. This man found Jesus and asked him stuff. As we were saying, he said, what would I have to do to have, now we've translated, eternal life? And I think it's fair to say that nearly every time people have read that passage, nearly every time it's preached or we hear it in a sermon or read it in a devotional book or whatever, we think the person is in effect asking, how do I be saved instead of going to hell? But that I do not think is a legitimate or in any way accurate interpretation of what he was requesting of Jesus. Jesus would not tell somebody that the way to go to heaven is to keep all the commandments and give away everything you own. How does that fit with John 3:16? It doesn't fit at all. It doesn't fit with the message of salvation. The man was not choosing to go to hell when he went away sad. He wasn't choosing to yield his salvation so that he could have his stuff and his bank. He was letting go of what he could have in this life. There's a temptation as Adventists, not just like people that are members of the quote Seventh-day Adventist Church, but the term as a theological description, Adventists, people who believe that Jesus is coming back and he's going to just wipe it out and start over anyway. And it's going to be, as soon as the great lifeguard says, okay, blows the whistle, says everyone out of the pool, then all this stuff we've done, it doesn't matter. Whether we've handled the environment well or not, who cares? It's all going to be melted down to its constituent elements and reformed. So who cares? And I was at our conference in Northern California, and I very much appreciate the ministry in our conference. And our leadership in our conference is a model of Christian leadership and everything. But there was a slogan that a few years ago was selected, and it was like everywhere that there was conference correspondence. Nothing but the kingdom, nothing but the kingdom matters, or something like that. It's easy, interpreted properly, that it's fine, but it's easy to read that and say, all this stuff in this life doesn't matter, doesn't count. It's just the stuff in heaven that counts. And I'm not in heaven, so I don't have, I can just sort of get by, make sure I don't go to hell, and try to make sure as many people as possible go to heaven also. And that's 100% on the paper. That's a failure. That's a failure way to do. We're told that the only thing we're actually going to take to heaven is not our junk, and it's not our money in the bank, and it's not our sports car or our house with a pool or anything like that. Just our character is all it takes. But our character is how we do in a moment, one moment at a time. Our character and our life is a calculus of lengthless moments. Think about that. In calculus, you're measuring something that is a limit. It's something that's vanishingly small. It's a technique of dividing something up into basically nearly infinitely small parts, pieces that comprise it, and then adding them all up. But you get these pieces so small, they're immeasurably small. And then you add all those pieces up, and it adds up to a real number. The concept of the limit is important as we think about how each moment of our lives adds up to our lives. But a moment is not a second moment, or a half a second. It's not even a nanosecond. It's timeless. It's a point, just like a point on the number line. Points have no dimension. They're just a location. And when we are totally in the present. When we consider the very moment that we're occupying, there's no way to start and stop a stopwatch. It's how you are in that instant, in that not even above zero amount of time that's timeless, that adds up to being your life and my life. And our character is how we habitually handle one of those at a time. If our character is always how we're going to act someday, once we get our poop in a groove, or our ducks in a row, or our education done, or finally get a family going, or finally get in a career, or finally get enough money and get our loans paid off, or finally get kids, or finally get rid of the kids, and finally get out of this house and get into the rest home, but whatever it is we're looking forward to, that means we have an unlived life, because we're always talking about fantasy time that doesn't actually ever come. And if instead we're always looking back, oh, it was great, man, back when I was really in my groove, back in high school, or, when we were really, that's not the present moment either. You don't have any access to that. You can't live in it, so you can't exist there. All this other stuff is a violation of the 10th commandment. What's the 10th commandment? It's a tie. And you. Don't covet. If you state that in the positive, if you're not coveting, if you're not trying to have something you don't have, then you're being content in what you do have. Remember, Paul said, I've learned to be content in all situations. In every situation, I can be content. I think that one way that sin can be defined is to, I have a backronym that I've made out of that. Whatever you aren't is what you wish you were. Even if that means being in possession of something, or being in a certain relationship, or having it be a certain time, or anything. Wherever I am is where I don't want to be. Whenever I am is when I don't want to be. Whoever I am is whoever I don't want to be. Whoever I'm with is not who I want to be with. Think about what happens when you're with somebody and they're texting instead of engaged with you. Shoot, if they were with the person they're texting, then they'd be engaged with you texting. But the person they're with they're never with them. Always on the phone, always texting, always checking Facebook and everything, but they're never fully engaged with you in the present moment. That's a problem. But it's a symptom, it's not the problem itself. Because if you just took the phone away, you can just disengage in your mind. You don't need an electronic toy to be able to covet being with somebody else. Ultimately, it protracts to whoever you're in a relationship with. That looked like the best person that you could finally get a relationship with in the whole wide world. But as soon as you get them, they're not a turn-on anymore. Oh, I got that. Been there, done that. Now you don't look around. Look around. I mean, the notion of broken relationships from people needing variety in their relationships is not about variety. It's about never being satisfied with what you have and who you have and who you're with and your own life. This man that came to Jesus wanted to escape that rat race. And Jesus said, well, you know, you could keep the commandments. Yeah, I'm doing that. I've been doing that all along. Jesus listed some commandments. Did Jesus, in listing the commandments, list the 10th commandment? He did not. He did not list the 10th. He said, so I've been doing these things all my life. I don't break the laws. And he says, so, get your own? No, all right. What do I need to do to get that? Get infinity life, that infinity living. How do I live in infinity instead of sort of in flatland, like a stick character stuck in the 4 dimensions, having everything always go in order, like a machine? How do I get off the page like you and have that heaven thing wherever I am and wherever I live? I want heaven now. Jesus knowingly identified what he was asking and said, here's what you need to do. You need to let go of what you're attached to in the 4 dimensions, in the flat part, on the earth's crust where you're stuck living regular. You got to let go of that, because you got to expand and move your focus up out of that. So you got to let go. You know the story of the I don't remember what kind of monkey it was, but some primatologist was trying to catch monkeys for some research, and so they took a jar. It was heavy, a big, heavy thing, pot or something with a narrow opening, just narrow enough to get a monkey's hand down in it, but not wide enough to pull out a monkey's fist. And they just put a bar candy or something in the bottom. The monkey reaches in, gets a hold of it, and then won't let go of that thing, even though it amounted to the monkey's capture. And so Jesus was asking this man, that's too heavy for you to get up and soar into infinity. So open your hand and let that stuff go that you're holding on to. Don't be attached to this stuff. You can have stuff, but having attachments means you're not free about it. You're not free. You're not available. You're not available to go with me into heavenly realms because you're still holding the gumball with your fist not letting you get unstuck now. But it says that yes.
So you're saying that he was talking about like how to live on this earth rather than how to get to heaven?
Yes. Except not exactly. He was talking about how to get heaven, but not how to avoid eternal destruction. He wasn't talking about how to be saved instead of damned. But he was talking about how to live in heaven. Because we don't need to wait for Jesus to come to live in heaven. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. It's within you. It's in you. You already have it available. We can live in heaven now. It can be such, and Ellen White puts it like this: when Jesus comes back, the people who are living in the atmosphere of heaven, that are walking with God like Enoch walked with God, when Jesus comes back, their life will not, there won't be any discontinuity in their life. It said that It's not that much change. As a matter of fact, okay, you were already there. When Jesus comes back, it just keeps going like it has been for you. Because you don't have to wait for him to come back to be experiencing the kind of life that is available after he comes back. Period. And that kind of thing is what this man was looking for from Jesus. Jesus, it says, looked at the man and loved him. And that is where I found the key in this story. We know that God doesn't look at people the same way that we look at people. We look at people's external appearance. We look at certain measurable benchmarks. But God looks at a person's, as it says, heart. Special information. And I think our natural reaction is, well, we don't have that information. So how are we supposed to do that? You become psychic. You have to put a third eye here and be metaphysicist. Oh, I'm reading your mind. We could do a Vulcan mind meld like thought. And if you've ever seen Star Trek, and if you haven't, shame on you. You should have seen Star Trek. But if you're not able to do the Vulcan mind meld trick, well, how can you look at someone's heart? Clue. I'm going to suggest to you that no matter what a person is doing, ever, I don't care whether they are Mother Teresa or an axe-murderer, human behavior and human ambition, human endeavors, and not just human, but everything living, is trying to reduce bad feelings and increase good feelings. That's it. I don't care if your deal is that you're religious and you're always going to church and preaching and doing your morning devotions. You are trying to get a good feeling out of that and reduce some bad feelings. If your thing is to do nice things for other people, you are trying to get a good feeling and reduce bad feelings. If your deal is you're trying to make lots of money and you don't care who you hurt, or if your deal is that I'm a sportsman, I like to defeat other people so that I can have a victory, you're trying to get a good feeling and reduce a bad feeling. And that's it. If you're a housefly and someone's trying to get a hold of you to put you out so you don't get on their food and put germs on their food and buzz around and annoy them and bite them and everything, when you run away from being grabbed, you don't want to suffer. You want a good feeling. Even the notion of not wanting to die. When you die, it probably hurts and you can't have any more good feelings.
Was Jesus like that too? Jesus never find like in the gospel, the one that's resurrected, was he the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. He wasn't neutral on that, and he would be trying to avoid a bad feeling and trying to make a good feeling. The difference is he expanded, as we can, who's good feeling and who's bad feeling. That's what it is to deny self, is to have concern for all sentient beings to have good feelings, to prioritize that and be motivated by not just you having it, but everybody having it. Not just me having it, but everybody having it, and avoiding the bad. So we can know when you look, when I look at another person, I know that you don't want to hurt. And I know that you want to feel good. I don't need special magic glasses or a third eye or a Vulcan trick to be able to look inside of you and say, she wants to feel good. She doesn't want to hurt. And here's a certain.
What do you say about the people that, I guess there's people that like cut themselves or they like they.
How about sadomasochism kind of stuff?
Yeah, kind of.
S&M stuff? People are trying to get a good feeling. A lot of people, like you were saying, like when doing cutting, cutting's not the same as S&M stuff for most people. I mean, it has an aspect like a lot of people are cutting out of desperation and anxiety and despair. There's a feeling that many people, not everyone, but there's a feeling that many people describe of feeling dead, not experiencing any sensations like you would if you were alive, and seeing blood and feeling some pain is it's the most powerful proof they can have in the moment to their emotional system that they're alive. They're not able to feel good. They need to feel something. And feeling empty, boredom, and blah, and vacuous is worse than active pain. So people will choose pain and even they'll evoke their own survival instinct, because that's something that they can still do that proves they're alive to their values. And people who do S&M stuff that's fetish tied to their sexuality, it's similar to any fetish that gets tied to sexuality. Like people like feet, or whatever. There's somehow that got tied in their psychosexual development to receiving and giving love or affection. A lot of times, like a parent will abuse a kid, over discipline and beat them, and then they feel guilty and then they give them affection. So intimacy has been tied to them to, first, you gotta hurt me. And that is a lot of quotes.
I have a question, it might be a little off topic, but I think it's important. So there's like 12 minutes left, and when I was looking at the thing, it said that you were going to go into review, or you were going to do a review for midterm?
Yes.
And go topics?
Let me just say, I will be postponing the midterm. It will be likely sometime toward the end of next week, so just don't worry about it. Okay? So when you... That's a good thing.
Okay. I'm up now.
Take a breath. Take a breath. Become parasympathetic. When you look at somebody also, before you do that, please, in an instant, bring to mind the most hurtful memory you can conjure. The thing that hurts you the most, to think about it. Look around. Nobody has lack of material. Every one of us has that. And if you could hear about it and see it for any other person here, you would be moved to tears. When you look at a person, you already know that. So when you're looking at their heart, you're looking at that. You are looking at knowing that if you knew, you would cry with them, no matter who they are and how cool and happy they seem. I would write those down if I was you. Those are important. What's on the board is all important, including the since I'm not. That's my backronym for sin. When you have finished your quiz, yes, when you have finished your quiz, then please give it to our TA, and I will wish wish you in advance a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you in 2 days on Wednesday. I will say this, some of you have posted some nice quiz and test material for us on that thread on the course shell discussion board. I will add this. I made a little note as a reminder. When you put something that comes from our textbooks, any of our readings, please put the page number and which reading it is. Okay? Because I had trouble finding some of it, and some of it I still haven't found. I'm going, that's a good question, and I remember reading it, but I'm not able to find out where you got it. So I need to see a page number. So some of those that I haven't purchased, I might purchase if I can find it in the book. So if you've already posted, go back and give me the page numbers, and then I'm going to be looking again when I shop. You'll notice that I've purchased several, and there's some that are on the quiz from what I've purchased.
That was fast. You give him the key and said, it's not bad. Not too bad. Questions? Yeah. All right.
If you are behind on the reading, please make a plan, break out a spreadsheet, and recalculate so that you do a reasonable amount of time each day so you can catch up, because it'll be increasingly significant. It'll be very hard to get a reasonable grade in the class without doing that reading, and very hard to benefit from the course personally.
You don't even stand up at all. Stand up and get the cookies at all.
However you want to do it. Just, you might even comment right on it. PV or some K. You can add a comment to where I said purchased. As soon as I say purchased, and you notice that, you can just add a comment and say, hey, as soon as you do it. Okay, when you send an email or a text, however, and I'll make changes on the document. I noticed one drop in my notifications this morning. Where's the sheet?
I think it's the last one. I noticed that, because I was looking for it. Yeah.
Did she do school? Oh, that's quiz one. So she just dropped. Was she here?
She was in here today.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd she do on that? Well, so
She did not.
She